Hi, I'm Ben Carrington from Compound Property Buyers Agency, where we help everyday Australians build wealth through property. And today, we're going to be covering the top 5 mistakes that we see time and time again first-time investors make that could be costing them thousands. And it's a big part of the reason why I see many property investors get stuck at 2 properties. And today, I'm very excited because joining me will be the head of strategy and research at Compound Property, Adam Young.
Ben, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks, mate. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you on. It's good to have another face in the studio.
Yeah, well, I've been watching your early videos, so very exciting to be here and be a part of it.
Very good, and I appreciate it. Well, I really appreciate all the work that you've done today, because what you've brought is the top 5 mistakes that you see a lot of investors make, and I've seen them all the same mistakes as well. So let's get into it. What is mistake number 1?
Yes, so mistake number 1 is when we see clients not having a clear plan before they start.
Absolutely, this is a big one. So what you're talking about is basically they're coming in and they're buying something or whatever, but they're not really thinking about how that purchase is going to get them to their goal. Or what do you mean by that?
Exactly. So I think this, I love talking about this point because I think this is where we really add a lot of value to the client. Apart from sourcing the actual property, is speaking to them about strategy, speaking to them about things like how are we structuring this purchase, how much do we have available, what do we want to achieve longer in the longer term.
Yeah.
So it's things like that. So having a plan of attack before we actually make the first acquisition, I think it's really important to sit down and talk about what it looks like, not just for this purchase, but moving forward, what are we trying to achieve? And I find if we're asking ourselves that, what do we actually want to do in, say, 10, 15, 20 years' time, then we can work backwards from that and have a proper plan so we're getting that first purchase right.
Yeah, definitely. And just a bit of a framework that I know that we use a lot is the 3C. So that is basically access to capital, borrowing capacity, and cash flow. So you need to think about everyone's going to come up against these constraints at some point. So at some point you'll run out of cash flow. So you need to be thinking about what kind of yields are we looking at. You'll also run out of capital. That's the number one thing. So how much equity, like what have you got saved? How are we going to get you to your next deposit? And then the third one is capacity. So that's probably the biggest one. What you're talking about there is making sure you're buying the right structure and preserving your borrowing capacity.
Exactly right. And it's a mistake that a lot of investors make. And they think, I've got unlimited amount of borrowing capacity from the bank.
Yep.
Investing's easy. Let's just go and buy properties. It's not that simple. So we really need to think about how are we structuring this?
Definitely. And we always say to speak to their accountent, obviously, but we can give them what we've personally done and what we have seen work.
Yep.
Just on that mistake, actually, there's a client that comes to mind. I remember we worked with him like very early days. He came to us. He'd gone and bought, he's a young guy living at home. It always sticks in my mind. He went and bought a property in Newcastle.
Yep.
And I remember he spent about $950 at the time, first purchase investment. And it was costing him $3,000 a month to hold that property. And so that is the reason why'd you buy in Newcastle? And he said, well, it's because it was near Sydney. I kind of knew it. So I went down there and found the property and bought it.
Yep.
Right. But that's exactly that purchase put him back in a big way. We actually then had to really work hard we're actually going for number 3 with him right now. That's why I think about it, because we're able to kind of change it because we went for a lower value, higher yield, the next one, and we worked through it. But essentially a property like that has then affected his cash flow moving forward.
Yep.
It's, held back his equity because it hadn't actually grown that much, and it really hurt his capacity too. So there's a really good example of making that mistake and why planning is super important.
Definitely. Couldn't agree more.
All right. Adam, mistake number 2 that we see.
Yes. So mistake number 2 is when we see buyers making a decision based on emotion, not data.
Absolutely. This is a big one. And to be honest, it's something that I'm seeing quite a lot at the moment, actually. I think we are just internally. Yeah. It's been a bit of a struggle. So the number one thing when you invest in property is a vehicle to get you to your goals. And this is what people forget. You're not buying an investment property to live in. You're not buying it because it's an area that you know. Yep. You're buying it because you're going to get a financial result for it, and we are working towards a long-term goal.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think that's where we need to work closely with the client and sort of give them confidence that data is the right way to approach an investment property. Like you said, they're not living in it. If you look at some of the areas that have performed over the last 5 years, some of them have doubled in value in the space of that period, which is huge.
Yeah.
Has a property which, it might not have a floor plan which they would personally like to live in, or the kitchen's at the back, or the block of land slightly less favorable than the other one. They've all gone up. And so it's kind of our job. That's what we do in the back end we look at the data and, we make decisions based on that. So I think that's really it's a crucial mistake that a lot of investors are making, and it can cost, hundreds of thousands of dollars in opportunity cost.
Yeah, big time. A big red flag for me is when someone comes on board and they say, I want to buy in X location, right? Because that's our job. Because they might want to buy, lately I've been hearing the Gold Coast, right? Gold Coast is great. Love the joint, right? But is it the best place to buy right now? And at the end of the day, are you buying something because you like the area, or are you buying something because you want it to grow, right? Like I would much rather buy in Timbuktu if it's going to have 100% growth than buy in Gold Coast because I like it and then underperform.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, again, it's just sort of having trust in the process, work closely with us, and we'll do our best to sort of pass that message on and explain the data and what we're seeing. Yeah. And as long as you do that, like you said, you're investing to get to a goal. You're not investing,
Definitely. And probably what we see, you've probably seen this, the clients that work with us that are on, say, number 2, 3 or 4, they end up buying with their eyes closed. We send them a property, like they've got so much confidence in the process of buying based on data that they'll just basically say yes and buy, and obviously they get the result that they're after because they start to learn over time that it's not all those other emotional things that matter.
Absolutely. One thing that I did want to note on this point, and it was a penny drop moment for myself, and I think it would be for a lot of people out there, is, a lot of the time emotions can come from people you surround yourself with. The best advice I ever had was, don't take advice from someone who's not in a position that you want to get to. And if you do that, I mean, if you're taking advice from someone who's not where you want to be, well, it's very likely that you're actually not going to get there either. So you need to sort of trust the process, move away from what you're comfortable with, what you're familiar with, and just buy based on data. It's as simple as that.
Definitely. And sometimes going against the tide feels hard, and I understand that, but it's where the best results come from.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, that's actually a great segue, Adam, into the next mistake that we see. Would you let us know what is the third mistake that you see people make?
Yes. So mistake number 3 is taking advice from the wrong people.
Absolutely. And this is a big one. There's probably a few client stories that come to mind. I remember we were buying in a really upcoming area, but we had a lot of stats and a lot of confidence on. And the client said that they were in an Uber when they got the property, and their Uber driver said that that's not a good city to invest in, and they didn't buy the property. So and I'm nothing against Uber drivers, but it just shows that we'd done all the work. We knew all the stats. We obviously had you on the research side. We're super confident in the market, but an Uber driver has said, with really no knowledge other than just their emotional or their personal opinion, not to buy, and that stopped that person buying.
Yeah, I remember that one very well. And that was, I mean, we were very early in the market, and looking back, that's what we like to do. We like to enter a market before, the masses come in and start buying as well. So that was a big miss, but exactly to the point. And it's not just Uber drivers, it can be family members, it can be friends. It can even be your broker. And we work with a lot of good brokers.
That's actually a good point.
We work with a lot of good brokers, and they do a fantastic job. But at the end of the day, I will say that they're the experts in their field. So work with them for your structure, your finances, your pre-approval, all of that stuff. However, they may not be experts when it comes to data and what areas to buy in. So you do have to be careful about who you take advice off.
Definitely. And a big one that I've seen, look, the property market's changed, right? Our parents could buy in Bondi for 20K, earning 10K a year, whatever the numbers were. Like, it was very easy to buy in blue chip areas around Melbourne, Sydney, all around Australia back then, right? Things have changed. And that's a big one. I see a lot of parents sometimes are a bit concerned why their, kids would be buying in a area that they're unfamiliar with. Why wouldn't they be buying something locally as an investment? But the reality is it's because they can't. Right, you just simply cannot go and buy an investment in Bondi Beach and expect, with a 2 or 3% yield and expect to get a result. You have to do things differently, and it's quite hard for some parents and family members to understand that. But you've got to back your process and back your decision, and that's where the investors that we see make it. They're the ones that kind of forge their way and go out on their own.
Yeah, exactly. So, like you said, the landscape has totally changed, and so things need to be done a little bit differently, but trust the process, surround yourself with the right people, and you won't go wrong.
Absolutely. Thanks, Adam. Now, mistake number 4. Would you mind sharing that with us, Adam?
Yeah, so this is one we see day in, day out, and it's chasing hotspots. So what I mean by that is, you might hear about areas that have gone really well in the media, and naturally you want to be buying there too. However, it might not always be the right decision.
Definitely. And I remember something I hear from Kyle. So Kyle takes our discovery calls. Shout out to Kyle if you're watching. Absolute weapon. He takes our discovery calls. He speaks to the client on the first call. And so many of these calls, they come to us saying, I want to buy an investment property in Brisbane. I want to buy an investment property in the Gold Coast. I've been hearing a lot lately. And before that, it was, I want to buy in Perth, right? And that's exactly the problem, right? Most people listen to the media, they read the media, they see that an area is growing, and then that is the market they want to buy. But Adam, tell us from a research and data perspective, why is that a problem?
Yeah, so it's a big problem because by the time you do hear about it in mainstream media, typically most of the growth that area is going to realise has already been realised. So it's natural, the masses pile in late, they want to buy where they see, they're confident because they've seen it perform. However, markets don't perform, They don't just keep going up and up and up. They do have a limit, and markets all have cycles. So, we're buying off data because we're confident that they're going to grow well above the national average for the short term. We're realistic though. It's not going to last forever. Yeah. It does have a time limit. So it is a problem when you're buying in those areas, because if you break it down a little bit further, you say, okay, well, some of these, data points, the fundamentals, supply and demand metrics, they're actually not very favourable at all.
Yeah.
So how much room does that market really have to keep going up?
Yeah. And if you watch some of my latest videos, when I did in the places not to buy in 2026, it's actually some of these hotspots. It was Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth, because they're the markets that have performed so well, but they're the ones, and a good quote I've heard recently is, you're not buying the past growth, you're buying the future growth, right? And I think that's where people get caught out and they think that things are just going to run forever, like you said.
Yeah, it's really interesting actually. An example comes to mind this week, not from someone that we're working with, but actually someone we're trying to buy off. So we're looking at a market that we're trying to secure a property for one of our investors.
Correct.
And interestingly enough, we might be able to pick it up for 10 or 20 grand less than what they bought it for last year. And after speaking to the agent,
maybe more than that. Maybe 409 they paid, 340 is our offer.
You're right, maybe even more. And it was interesting because speaking to the sales agent, the buyer has bought into this market, absolutely freaked out because it hasn't done much in the last 12 months. They're trying to sell and buy something in Perth instead. And it's just crazy to hear those stories. And obviously they're not surrounding themselves with the right people and they haven't looked at the data, but it does happen. So you have to be careful.
Perfect example, actually. Yeah, couldn't believe that one, but that's what's happening. And that, is a big mistake that I see a lot of investors make.
Yeah.
All right. Adam, now we're a little bit biased on this one, but I really have seen the effects of this recently, and I will let you talk it through. But tell us, mistake number 5, what is it that you see?
Yeah, so mistake number 5 is not having the right team around you, and I'm not just talking about us.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously, we'll give ourselves But anyway, it's things about are you working with a good broker? So is your broker going to get the right structure, get you the best rate, get you the best sort of
Yeah.
And then
so just on that, we've actually had a few instances lately, haven't we, where we've seen a broker actually kind of affect the client's outcome, haven't we? So
we have,
and we work with some excellent brokers. We say, and it's not that they maybe have the wrong intentions or anything. They just sometimes don't understand. They're not aligned to maybe how we're thinking about it.
Yeah, the strategy.
Yeah,
the strategy, and like we said earlier, the landscape has changed and naturally strategies change with it.
Yeah.
So we might be going a little bit against the grain and buying some assets that aren't as familiar.
Yeah.
However, the only reason we're doing that is because we're confident. We know it's going to work. In fact, we've got a really good track record of these types of strategies working with our clients. So yeah, I mean, it's so important to surround yourself with the right team and not just brokers.
Yeah. So what have we got?
What are
the main ones? We've got broker. Then what have we got?
We've got your broker, we've got your accountant.
Yeah.
Because obviously that's important as you scale your portfolio and you need to manage.
Definitely. And just on the accountant, as we know, our accountant's actually stopped saying no more. He said to us, no more clients, right? And what that is, it's a testament to a lot of our clients come in with an accountant.
Yeah.
And then once we start talking to them about what their plan is and kind of what's required,
yep.
they then realize that maybe they've outgrown their accountant.
Yeah.
They might work with their parents' old accountant, or they've had one since they started.
Yeah.
And then they realize the limitations. So getting a very good property specific accountant is essential.
Definitely. And probably the last one would be, you know, obviously working with us, we don't just source the property. We're very big on strategy, which we touched on earlier. And there's other partners in the industry that we work with. So if you're interested in getting something like a clear roadmap as to how we're actually going to get to your goal, well, is it worthwhile looking into some software which can manage your portfolio for you, and you can look at what the cash flow's doing, and at what point are you going to start earning money, you know, positive, is your portfolio going to be positively geared, and all of those sorts of things. So having the right team around you is so important, so underestimated.
Definitely. So we've got good accountant, obviously a good buyer's agent. We do know one if you need any help there. The other one would be good conveyancer. Now, it's taken a lot of time for us to find the right conveyancer, and we work with a lady named Mariam, and we're really, really pleased with how good that she's been. And I've noticed a massive difference. Because remember some of the clients we've had that have not gone with them.
Yes.
And what we've seen.
I mean, the difference between a good conveyancer and I would say the key difference is the one we work with, Mariam from Contractors Conveyancing. She's a solicitor. She's not just a conveyancer.
Exactly. They probably get offended by the word conveyancer, don't they?
They probably do. Yeah, so I just need to make that known to everyone. But she knows the process back to front. She knows exactly what she's doing when it comes to negotiating on things like the building and pest inspection.
Yeah. And
the amount of positive results that she's got for our clients. And then we see some clients choose to go with their own conveyancer because they're a little bit more affordable.
Yeah.
And they might be saving $1,000, but it costs them $3,000 or $4,000 in, not getting a good result.
Definitely. And a lot of stress too. Like we've noticed sometimes, because we're almost having to say to solicitor, you should push back, or the conveyancer, you should push back on this. You should be doing this. And they're saying, no, it's not going to work. And all, like where Mariam, like she'll just go straight in for it.
Yeah.
As a solicitor, and as we see, she gets results that are far beyond kind of what we've experienced in other ways.
Absolutely. And property's complicated. It's not as simple as just making an offer, paying the vendor, and away you go. There's so much complexity to it.
Yeah.
So as long as you're surrounding yourself with the right team, you've got your structure sorted, you've got your solicitor working for you to get a good result, you've got us finding the right property in the right market, and then your accountant's looking after things in the background. Yeah. You can't go wrong.
Definitely, yeah. So getting a good team is essential, and it's not easy though. And I understand, I get it. And also, you don't know what's not a good team either until you see what a good team is. It took us a lot of time to even form our team to support our clients. Yeah. So I understand for people. I've also had bad members in my team, like as accountants and brokers and things like that over time as well. So
likewise, I've switched brokers because our strategies just weren't aligned, and it's just allowed me to scale up a lot quicker than I would have been able to otherwise. So if something doesn't feel right, ask the questions and ask us. We can point you in the right direction. And it's just worth having conversations and seeing if there's a better fit out there.
Definitely. Awesome. Thanks, Adam.
No worries.
So those are the top 5 mistakes that we see property investors make. Not having a clear plan, buying on emotion, not data, taking advice from the wrong people, chasing hotspots, and not having the right team in place. So I hope that we've cleared up some of those mistakes and you can avoid them. So if you're getting into property investing, be mindful of these 5 mistakes. So I want to thank Adam, Head of Strategy and Research at Compound Property, for joining us today. It's been amazing to hear about the 5 mistakes that we've seen people make, and I hope that you can avoid them by listening today. As always, if you want help buying high growth and high cash flow properties all across the country, get in touch with us at Compound Property Buyers Agency, link in below.